Because the internal CMU might not be supported on all grading software and hardware configurations, another option is the external CMU, or eCMU for short. This is a device which takes SDI video inputs and emulates the Dolby processing inside consumer devices, outputting a tone-mapped signal. This allows for simultaneous monitoring of both your HDR grade and your Dolby Vision trim passes. In this video, we'll explore how to configure and use the eCMU to grade your Dolby Vision trims. Let's start out by looking at the CMU itself. This is the CMU hardware, and you can see it's a rack-mount computer, and inside it has a powerful GPU and SDI I/O cards. And eCMUs are available from Dolby-approved suppliers. To use the CMU, you need to connect SDI in and out and Ethernet for control of the unit. This is a typical eCMU signal flow. SDI output from the grading system is fed into both the HDR mastering monitor and the SDI input or inputs of the CMU. Then the SDI output of the CMU is fed into the SDR mastering monitor. The eCMU is also connected to your local LAN for control of the unit. It's important to understand how the CMU gets the metadata it needs for tone mapping. All of the Dolby Vision metadata is actually carried over SDI cabling. The local LAN connection is just for controlling and modifying the CMU's options. The eCMU can be configured with a single SDI card, which is suitable for HD or 2K work. And you can set up this configuration to use either a single 3G SDI connection for input as well as output, or you can set it up to use dual link 1.5G connections. This eCMU is configured with two SDI cards, which give it UHD or 4K compatibility. The bottom card is for input connections, and the top card is for output connections. If you need to monitor in 4K, you'll have to use quad 3G SDI in and out. Just keep in mind, if your grading system is outputting a single 12G SDI signal, you'll need to add converters to split the signal into quad 3G SDI. And you'll also potentially need quad 3G to 12G converters on output, depending on your monitor and/or routing. The eCMU can also be configured with a single AJA Corvid 88 card that is also capable of handling UHD or 4K. Be sure to talk to your CMU supplier about the right fit for your needs. Now, an important thing to consider when using the external CMU is that it's a lot easier to set up if your facility is using an SDI router. Since the CMU will be sitting between your grading system and one of your monitors, you may not want that configuration for every session that you're working on. Having a router that lets you dynamically patch different SDI inputs and outputs can be a huge time saver. The CMU's interface is accessed via a web browser. So initially, you have to set up your CMU to connect to your local network, and detailed instructions for how to do this are available in the CMU manual. Once you know your CMU's IP address, just type it into a web browser. The CMU interface has pages for home, configuration, licensing, a page to view a log of its operation, as well as a page to launch the CMU user manual. The first thing you need to do is install your Dolby-issued eCMU license here on the licensing page. When you receive your license from Dolby, additional instructions will be included for licensing the CMU. Just note, this is a different licensing process than enabling the trim controls in your grading software. Once your eCMU is licensed, you can configure its behavior over here on the configuration page. Here, you can give your CMU an ID number, which is really handy if you have multiple eCMUs, and you can also give it a name. You can also set up its SDI behavior. Since our SDR mastering monitor is HD, we're going to configure ours for HD or 2K. And you can also change the CMU's output to toggle between SDI or HDMI here at the bottom of the page. We'll use the HDMI option in a later video on QC. Jumping back over to the home page, we can now see what the CMU is doing. You can select various test patterns, black out the video, pass through the video with no processing, or switch back to normal operation like I'm going to do to have the CMU process tone mapping. Now that the CMU is set up, we can use it for our session for simultaneous HDR and SDR monitoring. Here in Resolve, under Project Settings, we need to choose Dolby Vision 2.9. The eCMU doesn't support version 4.0 yet. With this choice made, we can enable the external CMU. When properly configured below that option, you'll now be able to select your targets as well as the eCMU you want to use. And in this case, it's the one called DC Color that I've previously licensed and set up in Resolve. If these options aren't available for you, first analyze the shot on the color page, then reopen project settings and the options should be available. So let's choose the Rec. 709 100 nit target to view the grade in SDR. And then switching back over to the color page, now when I click to analyze a shot, you can see that the CMU receives the metadata from the grading system and applies the Dolby Vision tone mapping. And we can see that here on our SDR monitor. From here, we can adjust our trim settings using the Dolby Vision trim controls, or play down the sequence to see both the HDR and SDR versions at the same time. All right, so now that we've covered hardware, software, and project setup, in the next few videos, we'll put it all into practice, grading in HDR and putting into action the concept of Dolby Vision trims.